Unleash the power of knowledge and connect with the heartbeat of the African diaspora. Download our African Diaspora News Channel app now on Google Play and Apple App Store. Stay informed with authentic and diverse perspectives, breaking news, and cultural insights. Immerse yourself in a community that celebrates unity, resilience, and progress. Experience the vibrancy of the diaspora at your fingertips. Don't miss out. Empower your perspective today. Search African Diaspora News Channel and join the conversation.
My name is Naledi Mfoloe, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition of the African Diaspora News Channel, where we unravel the stories that shape our world and our communities. Now, there's been a growing conversation around the true cost of luxury brands, especially after the recent revelations by Chinese manufacturers and TikTok influencers about just how little global luxury companies really pay to produce the high-end goods. Now, for many, right, the shock lies in how much these brands make up their products, and not just in price, but in value. But behind the shock, there's a more insidious truth, one that calls into question not just the consumerism, but the legacy of colonialism and white superiority. Now, a woman on TikTok recently broke it down for her followers, explaining that luxury brands aren't about craftsmanship or quality, but rather about reinforcing a psychological hierarchy, which she explains is that one way proximity to whiteness is what's being sold, and the price tag isn't just for a product, but it's for the illusion of elevation, which is a carefully crafted narrative that makes you feel like you're a part of an exclusive club simply because you've got the logo on your back. Let's watch.
These videos from the Chinese manufacturers are proof that luxury brands are just white supremacy and classism monetized through psychological warfare. These companies are manufacturing goods and then charging us up to 5 times what they paid in cost for manufacturing. We aren't being charged for the quality of the products, but for the artificial social hierarchy that they represent. The business model depends on 3 manipulated truths. For marginalized people, it's the lie that proximity to whiteness equals value. These brands have convinced people of color that wearing a European logo makes them equal to the same system that despises them. For white consumers, it's the myth of inherent superiority. It reinforces the illusion that their purchase maintains their position in a racial and class hierarchy that is collapsing. And for everyone, it's the manufactured belief that self-worth can be bought, that your value as a person is somehow correlated to how much you will overpay for the same products being produced by poor workers. This is why a lot of Black luxury brands fail. They can't sell white superiority. These companies don't sell goods. They sell the disease of inferiority and the temporary cure of consumption. Every purchase reinforces the same violent system. White supremacy disguised as taste, classism rebranded as aspiration, and human value reduced to a receipt. This is what capitalism is all about. Capitalism is based in white supremacy and classism. The system keeps going as long as everyone falls for the mental manipulation.
As an African, this hits home on so many levels, because for years, African people have been sold the idea that luxury goods are the epitome of success, which is a mark of achievement and sophistication. And I'm sure many of us have stood in line for that designer handbag, trying to justify, right, the cost and telling ourselves that it's an investment or that it will somehow elevate us in the eyes of others. But when you stop and think about it, the truth is quite uncomfortable, because these brands, right, aren't just selling us quality, but they're selling us the idea of proximity to something that's been elevated, being valued and admired, which is whiteness. And for us, right, as Black consumers, it's a psychological trick, because the more we buy into the idea that a designer logo somehow makes us more worthy or more valuable, is the more we perpetuate the centuries old narrative of colonial superiority. And I believe it's an illusion, one that tells us that we're somehow better when we're closer to the dominant narrative, closer to the Western ideal of beauty, of status, of success. But this narrative isn't just about a logo, it's about something much deeper. Because if you look at it at a broader scope, right, the legacy of colonialism still runs through the veins of global consumer culture. Think about it. Luxury brands, those with the most prestigious names, of course, have often been built on the backs of marginalized communities. Whether it's the exploitation of labor in global factories or the way these brands were historically intertwined with colonial powers, the value of these goods have always been rooted in inequality. And the idea that luxury is tied to whiteness isn't a new thing, but what this influencer points out is the way this dynamic continues to thrive, especially in markets where consumers feel a desperate need to buy into a system that doesn't necessarily see their worth. And in the case of Black South Africans, this is especially important because we have a complicated relationship with Western brands. I mean, having spent so long trying to navigate a system that often rejects our true value, many Black South Africans, particularly those in the more affluent circles, have come to associate luxury with success. And that's just the truth. But what is success in this context, really? Is it true prosperity, or is it simply the purchase of an illusion, the idea that we've arrived, right, by acquiring things that were never meant for us in the first place? So when we as Black South Africans buy into these brands, I do think that we're participating in a system that was never designed for us to truly benefit. We are sold a myth that if we just spend a little more, or if we just buy into the idea of luxury, then we too can transcend our circumstances. But at what cost, really? I think for me, the deeper question is, what does it mean to truly elevate ourselves? Is it through acquiring luxury goods that were made for exploitative labor and colonial roots? Or is it through building something that is truly ours, something that acknowledges our history, our culture, and our true worth? Because I'm tired, honestly, of being made to feel that my worth is tied to brands I wear, the status symbols I collect, or the proximity I have to the artificial hierarchy, right? Because true elevation to me comes from a sense of self-worth that is not measured by a price tag or a logo, but by our collective ability to build, to grow, and support one another, and to invest in our own economies and in brands that reflect who we truly are and not who someone else tells us we should be. So, what's the takeaway here? Luxury brands, in many ways, are built on more than just craftsmanship. They built on a system of exploitation, of colonial hangovers, and psychological manipulation. The question we need to ask ourselves is whether we want to continue buying into the system, or whether we want to reclaim our power, and not just in consumers, but as creators and builders of something that truly reflects our own value. What are your thoughts on this? Let's continue the conversation in the comment section. Really like to hear what your thoughts are on this. And while you're at it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. That's it from me. Till